Hello, I'm Cynthia Willever. Today I'm going to talk about 5 things church members should consider when they're looking for their next pastor. When congregations are without a pastor, it can be stressful, and that stress can lead congregations to hurry the process along, believing that they're being efficient. However, without serious reflection and discernment about who will truly be the best leader for your church's mission and ministry, you will likely find yourself with a bad match or searching again earlier than you hoped. This cartoon might capture the way you and others in the church feel about calling a new pastor. You need help. This is the first of 5 things to consider as you look for your next pastor. Tip number 1 is learn from the past. The next pastor cannot replicate the past. While the next pastor cannot replicate the past, knowing what pastor profiles and leadership styles helped the congregation in the past is crucial. No other deliberation gives church leaders better insight into a good pastor-congregation match. Reflecting on which previous pastors were exceptionally capable allows lay leaders to think about their previous pastors in a deeper way maybe than they have before. What were their unique strengths? What was the source of those unique strengths? It is also helpful to recall any gaps in previous ministers' contributions, to bring those forward so that they can be avoided in the future as well. In short, what you want to do is start a conversation with lay leaders and members about what effective pastoral ministry looks like in your church. This cartoon says, these are the shoes of our last pastor. You may want to try them on for size. Well, as you can see, these are very big shoes to fill indeed. Here's tip number 2. Recognize unstated assumptions. Worshippers sometimes hold unstated preferences about the pastor's profile, such as his or her age, whether they're married and have kids. Does their spouse work? Would that be a factor in their relocation? What about their education or their years in ministry? If there's some pastor profiles that members would prefer not to consider, sort those out. Why such characteristics might detract from the potential of these pastors. How are they related to effective ministry? In other words, these unstated assumptions need to be surfaced. We also need to say that pastors can have unstated assumptions too. The best candidate will ask a lot of questions about your congregation and will listen carefully to your responses. They're seriously trying to assess whether or not they would be a good fit. Beware of pastors who already know their exact agenda before they've had time to get to know you as a congregation. Tip number 3, be honest about church finances. As more congregations struggle with financial challenges, clergy compensation decisions are becoming even more problematic. Both the pastor and church must be candid. The pastor needs to be open about his or her financial obligations. That will influence whether the position will allow this person to meet their obligations. The congregation must first be honest with themselves too about the extent to which they will offer their personal resources of time and money to support the church. What sacrifices are current members willing to make sure the church has a prosperous and good ministry in the future? Beyond personal choices is an even starker reality. The average church now has less than 100 people attending worship services. Congregations slipping below this critical number find funding even one full-time pastor difficult. Can the church also cover, besides the salary, the housing allowances or expenses, health care benefits for the pastor, retirement benefits? Some churches must consider maybe hiring a part-time pastor or other staff. A decision like this requires a frank appraisal from members about their personal level of involvement and commitment. Consideration number 4, resolve conflicts before the new pastor arrives. Minor conflict happens in every church, but ongoing disputes and major conflict, which may result in pastors or worshipers leaving, that really erodes congregational vitality. Placing a new pastor in the middle of the conflict and expecting him or her to fix the church is unwise and unfair. It's like asking your new pastor to be a referee, to be some kind of specialized mechanic to fix problems, or even a negotiator. Lay leaders should address any unresolved church conflict before the new pastor arrives, because pastors who serve in conflict-free churches find greater satisfaction in ministry and tend to stay put. So you're providing your new pastor with a better chance of success in your congregation. Finally, number 5, last consideration, know your congregation's strengths. All congregations perform some universal tasks or functions. There exists as a place for people to worship, they're avenues for community building, they assist people in need, and among other things, they are places that convey hope and ultimate meaning. Yet the manner by which congregations direct these functions reveals their unique ministry strengths. In every congregation, something already works well. How can your congregation build on those strengths? What kind of pastoral leadership is needed for that task? With a good pastor-congregation fit, the next new pastor's passions and ministry closely match the church's greatest dreams and hopes. You too can find leadership that fits your church.